The Whitmore's house in suburban Charlotte glowed softly under the early evening lights, warm and welcoming in a way that made guests sigh as they stepped inside. Caroline had spent the entire day preparing for Helen Whitmore's 60th birthday, ironing the table linens, arranging flowers she'd picked up from a local market, seasoning dishes with quiet precision. By the time the first guests arrived, everything looked effortless, as if the house had always been this graceful, this ready. People noticed. They always did. "Oh, Caroline, this is beautiful," one of Helen's friends said as she handed over a wrapped gift. "You have such a gift for hosting." Another guest stepped in behind her. "The place smells amazing. You must have been cooking all afternoon." Caroline smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm glad you like it. It's a big day for Mom." She didn't mention the tiny plastic test wrapped inside a tissue and tucked deep into her pocket. Every time she moved, she could feel its presence, a quiet secret pressed against her palm, a fragile joy she wasn't ready to share. Not yet. Tonight was for Helen. In the dining room, Derek was pouring wine and cracking jokes, his voice warm and confident. He moved easily from guest to guest, laughing, patting shoulders, leaning in like every person in the room mattered deeply to him. He looked exactly like the kind of man who adored his wife and cherished his mother, attentive and affectionate in all the right ways. "Derek," Helen called from the kitchen doorway, "this is wonderful. You two really outdid yourselves." He draped an arm around his mother's shoulders. "Only the best for you, Mom." And Caroline did most of the work. As usual. "Such a hard-working girl," Helen said with a smile that crinkled her eyes. She reached out and squeezed Caroline's hand. "You always take care of everyone." Caroline nodded gently, though the praise landed with a strange heaviness. For a moment, she slipped her fingers deeper into her pocket, brushing the pregnancy test like a grounding stone. The two pink lines still felt unreal, like something too delicate to hold up against the noise of the evening. As more guests filtered in, the house filled with chatter and the clinking of glasses. Laughter drifted across the open floor plan. Someone complimented the roast in the oven. Another asked for the recipe of the beet and arugula salad. Caroline moved between the kitchen and living room with an ease she had practiced for years, refilling drinks, setting down appetizers, making sure Helen never lifted a finger. But beneath the rhythm of hospitality, a quiet tension wound through her chest. She had imagined this night differently. She'd pictured telling Derek privately after the party. After the dishes were washed and the lights dimmed, he would take her hands, pull her close, kiss her forehead the way he used to in their first years of marriage. He would be thrilled. She was sure he would be thrilled. They had been trying for so long, hoping through so many disappointments. Now, as she moved through the gathering, that hope pressed harder behind her ribs. Derek caught her eye from across the room and flashed a grin, so warm that several guests turned to look at him too. "Honey," he said, beckoning her over. "Come join us. We're talking about the trip to Asheville next month." His tone was playful, light, completely in character. Caroline stepped closer, smiling politely, listening as Helen recounted a story from years before. Derek slid an arm around Caroline's waist, pulling her into the conversation as if nothing in the world could shake the foundation of their marriage. The guests cooed at how sweet they looked. Someone whispered, "They're such a perfect couple," and Caroline felt the words settle like a thin layer of ice over warm water, because something in Derek's warmth felt off. Not wrong in a visible way, nothing anyone else would notice. But Caroline felt it, sensed it, the way a person feels a sudden chill in a room without understanding why. She kept her smile steady. She kept her hands busy. She kept her secret safe in her pocket. Tonight was supposed to be joyful, uncomplicated, a celebration of family. And yet, beneath the glow of the birthday candles and the soft hum of conversation, the air trembled with the faintest hint of something she couldn't yet name. Something waiting just beyond the edge of the evening. The evening settled into its warm, familiar rhythm. Guests laughing softly, Helen glowing under the attention, Derek breezing through the room with effortless charm. Caroline finished setting out another plate of finger sandwiches when she realized she hadn't seen Derek in several minutes. He'd been right beside her just moments ago, telling a story about a contractor mishap on one of his projects. Then a guest called his name. He excused himself and simply didn't return. Caroline glanced toward the kitchen, then the hallway leading to their bedroom. No sign of him. She tried not to think too much of it. Derek often slipped away during gatherings, sometimes to check his phone, sometimes just to breathe. Hosting overwhelmed him more easily than it did her. Still, something tugged at her. She made her way through the crowd, smiling politely as she passed guests on her way to the back of the house. When she turned the corner toward the study, the hallway was dimmer, quieter, the noise of the party muffled behind her. And then she heard it, the low murmur of Derek's voice behind the closed study door. She slowed, the sound tugging her forward before she could think. Derek's voice wasn't loud, but it carried a sharp intimacy she had never heard in his work calls. I know, he whispered, each word carved with quiet urgency. Just listen to me for a second. Caroline's hand tightened on the edge of a side table. There was a pause. Then Derek's voice dropped even lower. I'm tired of pretending. You know that. I'm tired of acting like everything is perfect. Her breath caught in her throat. Another pause. She heard the faint crackle of the call, then Derek's soft exhale. A laugh, but not one of amusement. One of resignation. She still believes every word, he said quietly. She buys the whole perfect husband routine. Caroline went completely still. The hallway, the soft lamplight, the distant clink of dishes, all of it flattened into a single, sharp moment. Her heart thudded in her chest, slow and heavy, like it was bracing for impact. Derek's voice softened again, tinged with something she couldn't place. Affection. Maybe. Affection not meant for her. Just a little longer, he murmured. I'll figure everything out. Caroline's vision blurred around the edges. She pressed a hand to her stomach without thinking, fingers brushing the outline of the pregnancy test in her pocket, the tiny promise she'd carried all evening like a blessing. Inside the study, Derek laughed quietly, warm, tender, the laugh he hadn't used with her in months. A laugh saved for someone else. Caroline felt the world tilt, her ribs constricting until she wasn't sure if she'd drawn a full breath. Her first instinct was to push the door open, demand answers, drag the truth into the light. But her feet stayed rooted to the floor. The shock was too heavy, too sudden, pinning her in place. Then, footsteps echoed faintly from the living room. One of the guests moving toward the hallway. Caroline jerked back from the door, heart pounding. She turned, smoothing her expression in a single practiced motion, forcing her breathing to steady. She stepped away from the study, just far enough to seem as though she'd been adjusting a lamp or checking on a table setting. A moment later, Derek's voice faded. The murmur of the call stopped. Silence. Caroline slipped back toward the living room before he opened the study door, her composure held together by threads, thin, fragile, but intact. She re-entered the crowd with a smile that felt foreign on her face, her cheeks stiff, her pulse roaring in her ears. Caroline, there you are, a guest said warmly. We were looking for you. She nodded, swallowing the ache in her throat. Just checking on something in the back, she managed. Inside, the truth tore like fabric. Outside, she served drinks and nodded at stories like nothing had changed. Because in that moment, she understood the impossible task laid before her. To break quietly while the party carried on, to stand upright while the floor fell away, to act normal while her entire world cracked open behind a closed study door. By the time the last guest waved goodbye and the door clicked shut, the house felt too quiet, silence settling over the rooms like an unfamiliar weight. Caroline stood in the foyer for a moment, her hand still on the doorknob, staring at the empty space where laughter had echoed only minutes before. Behind her, Derek stretched his arms and let out an exaggerated sigh. "Great party," he said cheerfully. "Mom had a wonderful time." His voice was light, easy, untouched. Caroline forced a small nod, unable to trust her voice yet. She walked to the kitchen, gathering half-empty glasses and scattered napkins. Derek followed her, humming a tune he'd picked up earlier from one of the guests. "You okay?" he asked casually as he grabbed a plate of leftovers. "You seemed a little tired toward the end." She kept her eyes on the sink. It was a long day. "I'm fine." And Derek accepted that answer without even looking up from his plate. He didn't notice the stiffness in her shoulders. He didn't notice her trembling fingers. He didn't see the way her breath caught every time she heard the echo of his whispered words. "I'm tired of pretending." She still believes every word. Those lines ricocheted through her chest with every step she took around the kitchen. Derek brushed past her to put something in the fridge, his hand briefly touching her back in what used to be a familiar gesture. Now it felt foreign, staged, like she was watching him imitate a husband he no longer wanted to be. He rinsed his hands. "You really pulled off a great night, you know. Mom won't stop talking about how lucky she is to have you as a daughter-in-law." Lucky, lucky. Caroline swallowed hard, forcing herself not to recoil from the word. She wiped her hands on a towel, nodding again because she didn't trust her voice to say anything else without cracking open. Derek kissed her temple, another practice gesture, and headed to the bedroom. "I'm exhausted. Come to bed when you're done." She nodded again. Only when he disappeared down the hall did her face crumble, the mask slipping for a brief, shattering moment. She braced herself against the counter, eyes burning, breath unsteady. The kitchen suddenly felt too bright, too exposed, too full of all the lies she had listened to behind that study door. After 20 long minutes, she turned off the lights and followed him. In the bedroom, Derek was already asleep, sprawled comfortably across his side of the bed. His breathing was deep, rhythmic, peaceful in a way that felt almost cruel. Caroline slipped beneath the covers quietly, staring at the dark ceiling. Sleep didn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the low murmur of his voice again, the softness, the betrayal folded neatly inside each word. The way he had spoken to another woman with intimacy he no longer showed her. "I'm tired of pretending." She still believes every word. The phrases scratched against her ribs until it hurt to breathe. She shifted onto her side, clutching the pillow as if it could steady her. Derek turned slightly in his sleep, murmuring something she couldn't understand, and the movement made her flinch. How could he sleep so easily? How could he lie beside her like nothing had happened? How could he kiss her forehead earlier while carrying someone else in his heart? The questions circled her mind, relentless, knotted with pain. She stared through the darkness, tracing the faint outline of Derek's silhouette. Every breath he took felt like a reminder of the truth she wasn't allowed to voice yet. Not without proof, not without understanding the full scope of what she'd heard. And so she lay there, unmoving, her eyes wide and burning while the house around her slept. By dawn, she still hadn't closed her eyes. The pillow beneath her cheek was damp. Her body felt weightless and heavy all at once, like it was floating and sinking simultaneously. Derek shifted again, stretching comfortably, sighing the content sigh of a man whose world was intact. Caroline stared at him with a hollow ache. Because her world wasn't intact, it had cracked quietly, invisibly, in the space between two sentences uttered behind a closed door, and now everything she thought she knew was crumbling in the silence of a long, sleepless night. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, pale and indifferent, as if unaware that Caroline had not slept a single minute. Derek moved around the bedroom with his usual ease, showering, humming, choosing a tie, while she sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Long day ahead," he said lightly, grabbing his travel mug. "I'll be home late. Big project review." He leaned down and kissed her cheek, the gesture so casual it made her flinch. Then he hurried out the door. The silence that followed was so complete it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. Caroline remained seated for several moments, staring at the open doorway. Her pulse throbbed in her ears, her skin prickling with the leftover shock of the night before. She tried to breathe, tried to remind herself to function, to move, to stand, when something buzzed faintly on Derek's nightstand. Caroline's head turned slowly. His phone. He'd forgotten it. Her heart stuttered. Derek never left his phone behind. Not once in all their years of marriage. Even when he forgot his wallet, even when he rushed out the door late, the phone was always in his pocket, like an extension of his hand. Caroline stood up without fully deciding to. She approached the nightstand carefully, as if the device might burn her fingers. There it was. Black screen. Silent now. She reached for it, hesitated, then picked it up. The screen lit at her touch. The passcode screen appeared, and for a moment she stared at it, stunned by how quickly her hands remembered the numbers. Their anniversary. The date he once said was the luckiest day of his life. For 1-9. Her fingers moved almost of their own accord. The phone unlocked. A rush of nausea swept up her throat, her knees almost buckling. She opened his messages first. The top thread wasn't labeled. No name, just a phone number saved without identity. Intentionally, she realized with a sharp sting. She tapped it. The screen filled with messages. Dozens of them. "Last night was perfect. I'm tired of waiting, Derek. She'll never suspect a thing. Tell her you're working late again. We could have stayed longer if you weren't scared," she'd notice. "I miss you." Caroline's vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, but the words only sharpened, cutting deeper. Another message. "When will you tell her?" "I'm done hiding." And Derek's response, sent only the night before the party. "Soon. Just trust me." Caroline pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. She scrolled further up. Photos. It felt like her lungs collapsed. There was Derek, smiling in a dimly lit booth at a restaurant she didn't recognize. Across from him sat a woman, blonde hair, bright eyes, a bold red dress. Brittany Cole. Caroline recognized her instantly from a holiday party months ago. A colleague, Derek had said. "Barely knows me," he claimed. But the photos said something else entirely. A picture of Brittany leaning into his shoulder. One of Derek's hand resting on her thigh beneath the table. Another where Brittany kissed his cheek. Derek smiling as if the camera belonged solely to them. Caroline's stomach lurched. She barely made it to the bathroom before retching, gripping the sink with white-knuckled desperation. When the nausea finally subsided, she rinsed her mouth and leaned heavily on the counter, staring at her reflection. Her face was pale hollow. Her eyes looked older. Her hope, whatever tiny piece remained, flickered and died. Still shaking, she forced herself back to the phone. She needed to know everything. In Derek's photos, she found restaurant receipts, places he had never once taken her, upscale wine bars, a rooftop bistro in uptown Charlotte, a lakeside inn he told her was too expensive for just the two of us. There were movie tickets for a show he'd claimed was mandatory overtime, a weekend hotel, reservation for two, selfies of them laughing in a parking garage, a picture of Brittany wearing Derek's flannel shirt, the one he always wore when traveling for work. Caroline's throat tightened until she could barely breathe. Every lie, every detail he'd brushed off, every warm gesture he'd used to cover the distance between them, it all aligned in a single, devastating line. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It wasn't an emotional lapse. It was a relationship, a life he was building behind her back, a world where she existed only as an obstacle he hadn't bothered to move yet. Her legs gave way. She sat on the edge of the bed, the phone still open in her lap, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. This was the moment hope truly died, when the last fragile thread between them snapped, quietly and completely, leaving nothing but the truth she could no longer unsee. Dilworth Coffee in South End buzzed with its usual mid-morning rhythm. Quiet music playing overhead, baristas calling out drink orders, the smell of fresh espresso threading warmly through the air. Caroline stood in line with her hands wrapped around herself, as if holding her ribs in place. She hadn't eaten breakfast. She hadn't spoken to Derek since he rushed off to work. Her body felt hollow, her mind delicate, as though one wrong word would shatter her completely. Lily Hartman spotted her first. "Caroline!" she called softly, waving from a corner table near the window. Lily had been her closest friend in Charlotte, the kind of steady presence who showed up with soup on sick days and insisted on celebrating even the smallest wins. Today, seeing her rise from the table with concern etched across her face, Caroline nearly broke. They hugged, and Caroline felt her throat tighten with the unexpected relief of human warmth. "You look exhausted," Lily murmured as they sat down. "What's going on?" Caroline didn't know how to begin. She stared at the tabletop for several seconds, her fingers twisting a napkin until it tore. Then she whispered, "I heard Derek last night." Lily's expression shifted. First confusion, then worry. "Heard what?" Caroline inhaled shakily. He was in his study, on the phone, with someone. She didn't go into detail yet. Didn't mention the messages, the photos, the receipts, the hotel booking. The betrayal was still hot, too raw to touch directly. But Lily understood instantly. "Oh, Caroline!" Lily's voice thickened with anger and tenderness. That nearly undid her. Lily reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Caroline exhaled a trembling breath, one she'd been holding since dawn. "What did he say?" Lily asked gently. Caroline forced herself to meet her friend's eyes. "He said he's tired of pretending, that I still believe every word. He acted like everything he does is a performance." Lily's jaw tightened, and he meant it. "You can tell." Caroline nodded. "After he left this morning, I found his phone." Her voice wavered. Messages, photos, with a woman named Brittany Cole. The name meant something to Lily. Caroline saw it in the sudden wideness of her eyes. Lily hesitated before speaking. "There's something I never told you, because I wasn't sure." She swallowed. "A few months ago, I was at South Park Mall picking up a necklace for my sister. I walked past the jewelry store and I saw Derek there." Caroline's breath stopped. "He wasn't alone," Lily continued. "There was a younger woman with him. Blonde. Pretty. She was trying on a bracelet while he watched." Lily lowered her voice. It looked intimate, like a date. A tremor rippled through Caroline's shoulders. The truth, or the full shape of it, was worse than she'd realized. Not just an affair, not just betrayal. He was buying her jewelry, building something, investing. Lily's face softened when she saw the devastation in Caroline's eyes. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to be wrong. I hoped it wasn't what it looked like." Caroline nodded slowly. "I kept hoping to." They sat there for a long moment, the weight of it all settling between them, like thick smoke. When Caroline finally whispered, "What do I do?" it wasn't rhetorical. It was the quiet plea of someone whose entire life had tilted beneath her feet. Lily didn't answer right away. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Caroline, whatever you do, don't confront him yet." Caroline blinked. "Why not?" "Because he'll lie. He'll twist it. He'll erase evidence. He might even turn it on you." Lily exhaled. "You need to protect yourself first. Emotionally, legally, financially. Caroline swallowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the first person you call isn't Derek." Lily held her gaze firmly. "It's a lawyer." The words landed with a jolt. Not aggressive, not dramatic, but steady and deeply protective. Lily squeezed her hand again, grounding her. "You need someone who can tell you exactly what your rights are, what you're entitled to, what steps to avoid so he can't trap you or manipulate the situation." Caroline's pulse fluttered. I don't even know where to start." "I do," Lily said softly. "There's a family attorney in Myers Park, someone I trust. Discreet, compassionate, and very good. You don't have to decide anything today. Just talk to her. Get the information." Something shifted inside Caroline then. Not hope exactly, but clarity. A quiet, trembling strength beginning to gather in the hollow places. She wasn't ready to fight. She wasn't ready to confront. She wasn't ready to lose everything she thought her marriage was. But she could take a step. One step. Lily smiled gently. "You don't have to do this alone." And for the first time since last night, Caroline believed her. The house was silent when Caroline returned. The kind of silence that felt unnatural, too still, too expectant, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She stepped inside and closed the door gently behind her, leaning against it for a moment to gather herself. Dilworth coffee already felt like another world. Lily's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "Don't confront him yet. Protect yourself first." Caroline inhaled slowly and pushed herself forward. She didn't intend to search. Not at first. She only wanted to change clothes, maybe lie down for a moment. But as she moved through the foyer, her eyes caught a small detail. Derek's boots by the door flecked with red clay. He hadn't been anywhere near a construction site in weeks. It was small, irrelevant even, but it nudged her in a direction she could no longer avoid. She walked into the bedroom. Everything looked as it always did. Their bed, neatly made, throw pillows arranged the way she liked. But when she opened the closet to hang her coat, something inside her froze. Her favorite cream blouse, the one she'd been searching for before the party, was not on its hanger. She looked closer. The space where it normally hung felt glaringly empty. Her pulse jumped. She crossed to Derek's side of the closet and pulled open one of the drawers. Inside lay jeans, shirts, and tucked in the corner, something familiar, a pattern she recognized. Her blouse, not just misplaced, worn. The faint scent of Derek's cologne clung to the fabric. Her hands trembled as she held it closer, and fragments of a photo she'd seen that morning flashed in her mind. Brittany at the lake, wearing a cream blouse that had looked awfully similar. She'd assumed it was coincidence. Now she knew better. Her throat tightened. She placed the blouse on the bed with deliberate care, as if mishandling it might make the truth collapse on top of her. She moved next to the bathroom. Derek's shaving kit sat where it always did. Her skincare bottles lined the sink. But on the shower shelf was a new bottle of shampoo, one she didn't buy, expensive, with a citrus label she'd never seen. She opened it. The scent hit her immediately. Bright, feminine, not something she would ever choose. Another memory flickered. Brittany's hair in the photos, wind-tousled but shining, glossy in a way that matched the description on the bottle. Caroline set it back down, her grip tightening around the edge of the sink until her knuckles paled. Bit by bit, room by room, truth rearranged the world she thought she knew. She entered the kitchen next. The countertops were clean, but when she opened the pantry, she found a luxury box of chocolates, a brand Derek claimed he'd bought for Mom's birthday. He'd said he must have left it in the car, but here it was unopened, tucked behind a cereal box. Caroline held the box, wondering who it had really been for, wondering if Brittany even liked chocolate, wondering if this was a second box, kept here while the first had been given away with a smile Caroline was never meant to see. Then she saw the receipts. They were folded carelessly in the junk drawer. thin slips of paper from restaurants Derek had described as team dinners. Places with warm lighting, live music, rooftop seating. Places she had always mentioned wanting to try but never had the chance to visit. She unfolded one receipt. 2 entrees, 2 desserts, a bottle of wine she couldn't pronounce. 2 people, not a work meeting, never a work meeting. The numbness settled thickly into her chest. But beneath it, something else began to stir. Not anger, not yet, but something steadier, heavier, a quiet awareness shaping itself into resolve. She placed the receipts back in the drawer, closed it slowly, and drew in a long breath. Derek had built an entire life in the shadows of their home, an entire narrative she had never been meant to discover, but now she had the pieces, and soon she would decide what to do with them. The office in uptown Charlotte overlooked the city skyline. Sleek glass buildings, steady traffic, the hum of a weekday afternoon. Caroline sat in the reception area with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, feeling small beneath the soft lighting and modern artwork. She had barely slept, barely eaten, and the weight of the last 24 hours pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. When the door opened and a calm voice called her name, Caroline rose on unsteady legs. Caroline Whitmore. A woman in her 50s, composed and professional, offered a steady handshake. "I'm attorney Denise Marshall. Lily said you needed to talk right away." Caroline followed her into a private office. Quiet, warm, not intimidating the way she'd feared. Attorney Marshall gestured for her to sit, then waited until Caroline drew a slow breath. "What brings you in today?" Caroline's throat tightened. It took her several seconds before she could answer. "I think my husband is having an affair." The attorney nodded gently, not surprised, not judgmental. "Tell me what you know." Caroline did, haltingly at first, then gradually with more clarity. She spoke of the phone call behind the study door, the messages, the photos, the receipts. She didn't raise her voice once, yet each detail felt like a stone dropped in water, rippling outward until her chest ached. When she finished, Attorney Marshall folded her hands, eyes steady. "Caroline, I'm very sorry you're going through this, but I want you to understand something clearly, right from the start." She leaned forward slightly. "You have rights, strong ones." Caroline blinked, startled by the firmness in her tone. In North Carolina, adultery has legal consequences. It directly affects alimony. If Derek has been unfaithful and you have evidence, he legally cannot avoid paying spousal support. Caroline inhaled softly, the information landing like the first piece of solid ground beneath her feet. And the attorney continued, "North Carolina allows you to file for legal separation immediately. You do not have to wait for his agreement. Once you separate, the 1-year clock for divorce begins." Caroline straightened a little. "So I don't have to stay in the house with him." "You do not," Marshall confirmed. "You can file paperwork today. Or you can stay for strategic reasons until you're ready. The point is, the choice is yours." The words soaked in slowly, warming her from the inside. "There's something else," the attorney said gently. "Lily mentioned you might be pregnant." Caroline hesitated. "I haven't confirmed it with a doctor, but yes." Marshall nodded. "During pregnancy, North Carolina courts typically favor the mother in any custody considerations. Derek would have limited standing regarding decisions until after the child is born. That gives you security legally and financially. A quiet, trembling relief loosened something deep inside Caroline's chest. "For now," the attorney went on, "you must not reveal what you know. If he realizes you suspect anything, he could hide assets, delete evidence, or try to manipulate your separation terms." Caroline nodded, remembering Lily's warning. "I understand." "Your job," Marshall said, sliding a notepad toward her, "is to gather everything. screenshots, receipts, photos, any financial statements or messages. The more evidence you have, the stronger your position will be. Caroline looked down at the blank page, the pen resting across it. A day ago, she would have felt paralyzed. Now she felt something shift, subtle but unmistakable. A quiet awakening, like the first flicker of light before dawn. "Caroline," the attorney said gently, "you are not powerless. You're informed now. That's how women win in situations like this." Calmly, steadily, with preparation, Caroline lifted her gaze. "What do I do next?" "Go home," Marshall said with a reassuring smile. "Act normal. Say nothing. And start preparing for the life you choose. Not the one Derek chose behind your back." For the first time since the night of the party, Caroline exhaled without breaking. Clarity settled over her like armor. She wasn't healed. She wasn't steady. Not yet, but she was no longer afraid. She was preparing. Caroline spent the late afternoon preparing Derek's favorite dinner. Grilled rosemary chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and the honey-glazed carrots he always said reminded him of childhood. The motions felt mechanical, almost detached, as if her body were following a script while her mind observed from a distance. She set the table neatly, lit 2 small candles, and opened a bottle of wine he'd been saving. The house filled with warm smells, the kind that used to make her feel proud, cherished, connected. Now they only reminded her of how much effort she'd invested into a life Derek had already abandoned. When he walked through the front door, he stopped short. "Wow," he said, dropping his keys into the bowl. "This looks incredible." He kissed her cheek. "What's the occasion?" "Just wanted us to have a nice evening," she answered calmly. He beamed, pleased, unsuspecting. "You're amazing." Seriously. They sat down to eat. Caroline served him, refilled his glass, and responded politely when he talked about his day, his co-workers, the long meeting he had at the office. He didn't notice the slight stiffness in her posture. He didn't notice the way she studied him, not lovingly, but with a cold, precise calm. He laughed about something that had happened at work, and she nodded. He asked about her day, and she murmured something neutral. The entire time, her resolve hardened like steel cooling under flame. When he finished the last bite of his chicken, Caroline folded her napkin slowly and placed it beside her plate. "We need to talk," she said. Derek froze. The fork in his hand paused halfway to the plate. He set it down carefully, almost reluctantly. "I know," he said with forced lightness. "You seemed off last night. Is everything okay?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Yes, we're going to talk about her. Your girlfriend." The change in Derek was instant. His eyes widened, not with guilt, not at first, but with raw, unmistakable panic. His shoulders tensed. His breath caught. What are you? Caroline, what are you talking about?" She stayed perfectly still, her voice cool and steady. "Brittany Cole." All color drained from his face. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For a moment, he looked like a man trying to calculate escape routes in a burning building. Caroline reached into her bag and placed Derek's phone on the table between them. "I found your messages," she said. "Your photos, the restaurant receipts, the hotel reservation for 2, the jewelry store visit at South Park." Derek swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. "Okay, just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," she replied. His denial phase began exactly as predicted. "Caroline, no. You're misunderstanding. It wasn't like that. She's just a co-worker. We were planning something for a client." She slid a printed photo toward him, Brittany leaning into his shoulder, his hand on her thigh. He stopped talking. Now came the minimizing phase. "It was stupid," he blurted. "It didn't mean anything. It was just flirting, just attention, okay? I didn't want it to go that far." "It went far enough to buy her jewelry," Caroline said softly. His chest rose sharply. "Okay, that was a mistake. A huge mistake. I was confused. I was stressed. The project at work and the hotel, she asked. The weekend reservation? His eyes darted away. Caroline, please. I got caught up in something stupid, but I swear it's over. I swear I ended it. You told her, Caroline said, her voice level, that you're tired of pretending, that I still believe every word, that you just need a little longer. Derek's mouth fell open. You heard that. She nodded once. The justification phase crumbled. Now came the begging. Caroline, please, he whispered. He stood abruptly, circling the table to drop to his knees beside her. Please listen to me. I never meant to hurt you. I messed up. I messed up so badly, and I know it. But I love you. You're my wife. You're my family. We can fix this. Please don't throw everything away because of one mistake. She turned her head slightly, just enough to look him in the eyes. One mistake, she repeated. This wasn't one mistake. This was months. You built a life behind my back. He shook his head wildly, tears welling. I was lost. I was stupid. She was just a distraction, that's all. A stupid, meaningless distraction. And yet, Caroline said quietly, you told her you wanted a future with her. He closed his eyes, as if the truth itself physically stung. Finally, the last phase, blame. If you hadn't been so distant lately, he whispered, voice cracking. Maybe I wouldn't have. Caroline stood. The chair scraped softly against the hardwood floor. Derek stared up at her, broken, desperate, still trying to reach for the version of her who used to believe him. But that version was gone. Caroline looked down at him with a cold, tragic certainty. The only person responsible for your choices, she said, is you. And for the first time since his lies began, Derek understood that nothing he said could undo what she now knew and what she now intended to do. Morning light washed over the kitchen in pale gold, soft and indifferent, as if unaware of the wreckage that had unfolded the night before. Caroline sat at the table with a mug of untouched tea, her fingers curled loosely around the handle. She hadn't slept. Derek had barely slept either, pacing, muttering, trying and failing to come up with explanations that didn't collapse under their own weight. Now, he stood by the doorway with 2 hastily packed bags at his feet. His eyes were red, his face drawn, shoulders hunched like a man expecting a sentence he could no longer outrun. I'll stay with Mark for a while, he said hoarsely, just until things calm down. I don't want to make this harder. Caroline didn't answer. She watched him with a stillness he couldn't quite look in the eye. He shifted again, glancing toward the staircase that led to the bedroom they'd shared for years. Caroline, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, and I know you don't believe me, but She raised a hand gently, stopping him. Derek. He fell silent immediately, desperate for any scrap of attention she offered. Caroline inhaled once, steadying herself. Her fingers pressed lightly to her abdomen, almost unconsciously, almost protectively. There's something you need to know, she said. He straightened. Anything. Please. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like a small, fragile truth that didn't belong in the midst of everything else. Derek's face shifted, shock first, then confusion, then a deep, painful ache. His mouth parted, but no sound came out. Finally, he whispered, You're pregnant. She nodded. A trembling breath escaped him. He stepped forward instinctively, but she didn't move. An invisible boundary between them stopped him cold. Caroline, I didn't know. If I had known, he swallowed hard. I swear I never would have. Her expression didn't change. It doesn't matter now. No, it does, he insisted, voice cracking. I'll help. I'll do whatever you need. Doctor's appointments, money, anything. I won't abandon our child. I promise. For a fleeting second, something like guilt flickered through her chest, not for him, but for the version of herself who had once believed his promises without hesitation. She pushed the feeling away. She didn't have room for it anymore. "I'll take care of the appointments," she said softly. "Right now, I just need space." He nodded quickly, almost frantically. Of course. I'll give you space. Caroline, I'll fix this. I'll prove to you that I can be better. Just, please don't shut me out completely." She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. "I'm not shutting you out," she said, "but this house needs to be mine for now. I need to think. I need clarity." Her words were calm, measured, yet they struck him harder than any accusation the night before. Derek wiped his face with the back of his hand and picked up his bags. The sound of the zipper brushing against his jacket felt painfully final. At the door, he turned back. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "More than you know." Caroline didn't respond. He stepped outside. The door closed. Silence swept in like a tide. For several long minutes, she remained seated, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the wall clock. The house felt strangely empty without Derek's restless presence. Empty, but not frightening. She exhaled slowly, feeling the slightest shift inside her chest. Not joy, not relief, not triumph. Something cleaner, quieter, a beginning formed from the end. Her world had cracked open, but for the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe again. The drive to Rock Hill took less than an hour, but for Caroline it felt like crossing into another lifetime. The highway stretched out beneath a pale autumn sky, the trees on either side tinged with gold. She kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other gently resting over her abdomen, as if the small gesture could steady the storm inside her. She hadn't planned to go. She hadn't planned anything at all. But after Derek left that morning, the house had become too quiet. Every corner shadowed by the echoes of a life that no longer belonged to her. She needed distance. She needed grounding. She needed home. Her parents lived in a modest craftsman-style house on a quiet street, flower beds lining the walkway, wind chimes tinkling softly on the porch. When she pulled into the driveway, her mother was already stepping outside, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her father followed a moment later, his expression calm but alert. "Sweetheart," her mother called, eyebrows lifting. "We weren't expecting you." The sound of her voice, warm, familiar, hit Caroline with unexpected force. She barely managed to nod before her mother hurried down the steps and wrapped her in a tight embrace. The dish towel fluttered to the ground as she held her daughter with both arms, strong and steady. "My God, Caroline," she whispered, pulling back slightly to study her face. "What's wrong?" Caroline swallowed hard. "Can we go inside?" "Of course," her father said quietly. They guided her into the living room where the scent of freshly baked cornbread lingered. Her mother sat beside her on the couch, her father settling in the armchair across from them. No one rushed her. No one pressed. They simply waited, offering her the silent permission to fall apart if she needed to. It took her nearly a full minute to find her voice, and when she did, the words came out fragile, trembling but honest. "Mom, Dad, Derek's been cheating on me." Her mother's breath hitched sharply. Her father closed his eyes, the muscles in his jaw tightening. Caroline kept going because stopping felt impossible. She told them everything, the phone call behind the study door, the photos, the messages, the receipts, the arguments over dinner. Each detail was a wound reopening, yet speaking them aloud felt strangely necessary, like cleansing the air she'd been choking on. Her mother covered her mouth with one hand, tears welling instantly. "Oh, sweetheart," her father leaned forward, his voice steady but weighted. "How long?" "Months," Caroline whispered. "Maybe longer." Silence settled over the room, heavy but safe. Her mother reached for her hand, squeezing it with a fierce tenderness. "You didn't deserve this," she murmured. "Not 1 second of it." Caroline's breath trembled. "There's more." Her parents waited. She pressed a hand to her stomach. "I'm pregnant." Her mother's tears spilled over. Her father inhaled sharply, his eyes softening with a heartbreak so deep it made Caroline look away. "Oh, darling," her mother whispered, pulling her close until Caroline's head rested on her shoulder the way it had when she was a child. "I'm so sorry you're going through this." Her father stood, crossed the room, and knelt beside them. "You are not alone," he said firmly. "You and that baby, whatever happens, you will have us. Always." The certainty in his voice cracked something open in her chest. She had held herself together through the betrayal, the evidence, the confrontation, the separation. Here, in the quiet of her parents' living room, she let herself unravel, crying softly as her mother stroked her hair and her father rested a strong hand on her knee. When her tears finally slowed, her mother brushed them away gently. "What do you want to do now?" she asked. Caroline considered the question, feeling its weight. For days she had been reacting, stunned, shattered, numb. Now, for the first time, she felt space around the grief. Space where a future could begin to take shape. "I want peace," she said softly, "and safety, and a life that's mine again." Her father nodded as if he'd been waiting for those words. "Then that's what we'll build." They sat together for a long time. No rush, no pressure. Just three people navigating the aftermath of a broken world and piecing together the first outlines of a new one. When Caroline stepped outside later, the sun had dipped low, casting a warm glow across the neighborhood. She placed a hand over her stomach again, not as a reflex this time, but as a promise. She had been betrayed, blindsided, cracked open, but she was still standing, still breathing, still capable of shaping the life ahead. As she walked toward her car, a quiet hope flickered to life, small, steady, and undeniably hers.